Hey, what's going on, everyone? Welcome to #Trust the Process, where we talk all about determination, resilience, and perseverance. Today, I'm joined by film festival director and film producer Rico Johnson-Sinclair. I did a brilliant Natter with Nilan video earlier with Rico, so make sure you check that out as well. Rico, welcome back. Thank you very much for coming back again and speaking to me about all things film and TV. So with this segment, #Trust the Process, what I want to do is talk about the difficult side of our industry. I think working in film and TV can be hard at the best of times. I think one thing that I find makes it slightly easier is hearing about the journeys of other people that are, going on similar paths and have gone on similar paths, and hearing their stories of how they overcame various things. So with that in mind, in this segment, I'm going to ask you 3 questions, and if you could be as honest and open as possible, then I'd really appreciate it. So first question, can you tell me about a time where you have felt like giving up?
Yeah. I guess my first experience of this industry in exhibition was going through something called FEDS. So the Independent Cinema Office run this almost traineeship called FEDS, Film Exhibition Distribution and Sales. And whilst I'd worked and dabbled in the film industry before that, that was my first paid role. And it was with this amazing organization, and I don't want you to tear from that organization because the organization is amazing, called Flatpack Festival.
Oh yeah, I know them, yeah.
Yeah, it's one of the best festivals in Birmingham, hands down. And my experiences there were exceptional. The organization really felt like a family. There was a flat hierarchy. Obviously, there were issues for me being a black queer male within an organization like that, but there wasn't any instances of overt racism or targeted racism. It was just the organization generally, their lack of understanding of racial nuance. But even so, had the best experience there, really value the organization. But when I left, because the point of FEDS as a program is to train you up so you can then go and get employment in the film industry.
Yeah.
But the problem was, because I worked for a festival, I found it really, really hard to get further work in the film industry. Some of the interviews that I had, for example, at Phoenix Cinema in Leicester, said that they couldn't employ me because I didn't have knowledge of box office systems and working within a venue, which for me was super frustrating because I just spent the better part of a year training myself so I could get a job in programming or even as an assistant in a cinema, in a venue. And the closest one to me that I could access, the closest independent cinema that I could access, was Phoenix in Leicester. So for me, that was a huge disappointment, and it made me think about my relevant skills and where I was lacking and what I'd have to do to be able to train myself up. And actually, I think Cineq in its first stead, it started because it needed to exist, but also it started because there was no other opportunities for me in film other than the ones I had to create myself. And Cineq, when it first started, was really hard to do because Cineq wasn't my main job, and I'm completely unsupported. So the money I make is literally the money I live on. So Cineq was always something that I had to do on top of my job. And so having to sustain that for a long period of time while working full time and then picking up little projects here, there and everywhere, it really had a detrimental effect on my health, to the point where I thought that I was just going to give up Cineq and just not bother doing it anymore. But then the thing that I guess kept me going was the realization that actually Cineq was the only thing that was still engaging me in the film industry. Without Cineq, my experiences in film would be long forgotten, and they wouldn't even be relevant to the kinds of careers that I wanted to go into. And also I suffer with so I have psychosis. So psychosis is a combination of auditory and visual hallucinations. So I should say, be more accurate actually, I used to have psychosis. Now I have borderline personality disorder with pseudo psychotic symptoms that are due to multiple small psychotic episodes. So that's like my full diagnosis. But what that means in practice is I have auditory hallucinations in my mind all the time. So the way I would describe it is, if you're cooking in a kitchen and you've got the radio on in the background, like, you can still cook, you can still finish the recipe, but it's just really annoying after a while. So it's like that in my head all the time. There's like 4 or 5 voices that are different, saying derogatory things like all the time. And then alongside that, when in periods of high stress, I have visual hallucinations as well. So that is dark shadows in my peripheral vision. So I always have to be mindful of my mental health whenever I'm engaging with something. But because I don't have a support blanket, because I'm, working class to the core and I'm self-sustained, sometimes my mental health and sometimes my well-being has to take a backseat to like what I have to do to be able to access this industry. So yeah, I guess there's a series of times where I felt like giving up on this journey, just because it's so hard to get sustained employment in the film industry. But further on from that, it's really hard to get respect to someone that works in the film industry, because everyone thinks you're just, the programming especially is something that you can do, that everyone can do, but only a certain amount of people can do really well. And so having to prove myself as a programmer for years and years and years before I was even given access to program for other cinemas was a really difficult feat, especially because of my specific situation, which was relevant to my identity as a queer man of colour, and all of the complexities of that identity. So yeah, I guess it's just about network. The people around you really help you to keep going. And also the really good feedback. Like, one of the things that kept CineQ alive for as long as it's been alive is that after every event or after every festival, you go through the feedback forms that the BFI give you, and you read what people have written about like a space like CineQ, and it's all like, really glad that CineQ exists, it's really important, and that kind of feeds your soul, nourishes you. So yeah, I guess that's what I would pick.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, it sounds like you've had a lot to contend with, which, I think anyone coming into the film and TV industry without any sort of connections or any sort of, if you don't know anyone, it can be really difficult, not only to get in, but to stay in, and even then to progress. I've certainly found that. I mean, my next question was going to be, what stopped you giving up? Like, what made you carry on through that barrier when maybe common sense or just the practicalities would have said, maybe not this, or maybe not now?
I guess that my love for film, as corny as that sounds, my love for film really did sustain me. Like, knowing I got so much. So my experiences of representation is like watching queer soap storylines when I was younger and seeing a marketable difference between how my parents would treat me, how my mom would treat me before she accessed that storyline versus after she accessed that storyline, and seeing that she was actually kinder about my queerness after she'd watched someone on TV go through it. And I think that's probably where my curiosity stemmed from. So knowing, and then from then I accessed queer film and learned a lot about my identity as a Black queer man. I mean, a lot of the queer film that was freely accessible at that time was about white queer men or white gay men. But coming into it afterwards and looking more intensely at what was available in terms of new queer cinema and old queer film, I found a lot of films like Tongues Untied by Marlon T. Riggs, which talks explicitly about the Black queer experience. I found a lot of myself in that, and was able to kind of understand my own identity and things like internalized homophobia and internalized racism that stems from being queer in a very white community, or rather a visibly white community. So knowing that I'm bringing that kind of visibility, that kind of representation to other people's lives, knowing that they see things on screen, it can have a really ingrained effect in the way they perceive themselves, or the way that they're, kind of comfortable in their own skin, is really kind of nourishing to me. Film has the ability to be so formative. But then it's also the other stuff. It's all the kind of vacuous stuff, like the perks. Every year I get to go to the flair, or like, you know, I can be industry at like a variety of different festivals that specialize in queer film. So like it's the nice stuff as well, and like thinking about, you know, in the future where maybe I'll go to Cannes or maybe I'll go to Toronto, and like knowing that I can like get an industry pass to either of those festivals. If I've got the money and the resources to get there, then I can go and visit those festivals and have a really good time and meet like-minded people. That's also something that sustains people, that program.
Definitely. Yeah, I think it's so important to sort of have that in the beginning, maybe that blind faith of knowing that however much you want to give up or give in, the start of your journey and that upward trajectory is on the other side of that decision, and you just have to find a way to get through, and it is very difficult, which leads me on to my final question. If you could give advice to someone who maybe aspires to do what you do, whether it's getting involved in film festivals or producing films, what advice would you give to them if right now, in the current world predicament that we're in, which is very different for everyone, everyone's going through various different things, what advice would you give to them if they felt like giving up now on their dreams and aspirations in the world of film and TV?
I think to be successful in the industry, there's one fundamental truth that you have to carry with you wherever you go, and that is there is no one in the world that can do precisely what you do the way you do it. And I think that holds really true. I think it holds really true for society as generally, but I think because, you know, people that work in film are a fraction of society, it's especially prevalent in our industry. And I think that anyone who's planning to give up on their dream or what they want to do needs to also understand that they're depriving the world of the benefits of accessing whatever they want to achieve or whatever they want to do. That, you know, short film about mental health could change someone's life. That short film about mental health could stop someone from committing suicide. Like it's such a widely accessible but also not accessible, if you get what I mean. Like in terms of monetary, it's not accessible, but it is, like, film is such an accessible form of media and it has such visibility that it's, above all else other than music, one of the ways that we can change the world. And I really genuinely believe that. I think that someone said it to me like 2 days ago, that people's minds are changed through their hearts. And I think I think film is, interestingly, one of the easiest ways to change someone's heart, because they let their guard down when they sit in front of a screen to engage in something. So yeah, if you're planning to give up, don't. But then also know that everyone has felt like they wanted to give up, and like you said, often the upward trajectory is just past that decision. If you have a hard time and decide that you're going to force yourself forward, regardless, then every single hard time that comes after that will be that little bit easier.
100%. Rico, thank you so much for your time, for your wisdom, for your advice, and for your honesty. I've really, really appreciated it. Guys, go and follow Rico on social media. He's on Twitter, he's on Instagram. I'll put the links in the description below. And yeah, let me know what you think of these videos. I want to continue to do more of them. I want to continue to have these conversations and provide more encouragement and advice. You know, I want to expand this industry out to, you know, and new generations and new communities of people that really should look at this industry as a viable, you know, career option and a place to work and place to tell stories. That's my MO anyway. But yeah, like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys later.